Hello there, welcome back to another review. Today we're going to be looking at Marshall Club, recently released by 88 Films. Shaw Brothers, another classic from Lau Kar-leung. Probably one of his more light-hearted films, not one of his more serious films from Lau Kar-leung. If you look at films, some of his light-hearted ones like My Young Auntie, this film is very much in that similar vein. I say the film is only rated 12, so there's nothing too violent in this film. It's played more light-heartedly. It's that kind of film. It's otherwise known as Instructors of Death, which makes the film seem quite harsh and quite brutal, it's quite a violent film, and it really isn't. It's a very light-hearted film. I say directed by Lau Kar-leung. Gordon Liu Cha-hoi plays Wong Fei-hung in this film, and then you get the regular Lau Kar-leung regulars like Seo Ho in this film. So I'll be getting into Marshall Club today. I'd never seen this film before it was been released by 88 Films, so thank you very much for that. And just getting into sort of to say what I thought of it. Is it any good? Is it a good kung fu flick? Is it a good... it's by Lau Kar-leung, so you know you're going to be sort of okay anyway. You know it's going to be sort of above average at best. I say Gordon Liu in this film plays Gordon Liu. Gordon Liu in this film plays Wong Fei-hung. Very much the same character that Jet Li played in Once Upon a Time in China and Jackie Chan played in Drunken Master, and it's very much the latter, the style they're going for. It's not done in a very serious way, like it was done in Once Upon a Time in China with Jet Li. It's very much played like a Drunken Master, not a satire, but just sort of putting a bit of fun spin on the Wong Fei-hung character, and just having a bit of fun with it, as like I say. Comedy and lightheartedness is very much at the front here. The film very much does try to break the traditional sense in what kung fu movies of the film had offered. Johnny Wang in his cast is usually the villain in a multitude of kung fu movies. Here he's actually, interestingly, he's cast more of a sympathetic type. He's not really a bad guy. He's more a hired professional who's been sort of misled by this sort of gang. You'll probably, if you know this guy I'm talking about, he's been in like a plethora of kung fu movies. I mean, he's one of these people. He's usually, as I say, a villain, but in this film he is a villain, but he's not really, because he's been sort of misled by sort of his friend of his, this sort of school that he's sort of knows. But as mentioned, this film does try to break the traditional sense of what a kung fu movie is. I mean, again, here, Lau Kar-leung just trying something different, doing different things, not going for this stereotypical revenge story, you killed my master. And that's, like I've mentioned before in other reviews, I love it when kung fu movies don't do that. If they do that story, I like them to put a different spin on it. I like it when things are a little bit different, when they do say, well, let's not do that story, let's mix it up a little bit, let's try, how about we do this, do that, that kind of thing. Going back to what I just mentioned on the point, like I said, it did mix things up a bit. I mean, here, even from the very beginning, there is like a lion dance sequence with even the director informing the audience on the proper etiquette regarding lion dances, and what's regarded to be good or bad when it comes to lion dances and them taking place. And as mentioned, Johnny Wang playing the bad guy in this, he isn't really that bad. Yes, the typical things are there, the two rival schools, that kind of thing. But the film does mix it up a little bit. I won't be dissecting this film to pieces, but just giving you an overall idea of what I thought about it. Is it a good kung fu movie, that kind of thing. Even the end fight sequence in this film, the villain doesn't get killed. This is why this film is very much light-hearted. Lau Kar-leung did direct quite a few. There was a couple of films that he did that weren't really that serious, that weren't sort of where somebody's seeking bloody revenge or anything like that. And this one is definitely more played just for, like I say, giggles and just a good time and a bit of fun. There's still like bad stuff that happens in it, but it's nothing too gory, too violent, too extreme, that kind of thing. Like I say, the end of this, the villain doesn't even get killed. There's no sort of like justice being served or anything like that. He leaves with respect for Wong Fei-hung at the end when Johnny Wang and Gordon Liu fight. Basically, the premise of the film is there's these three schools, and there's one bad school is trying to bring the other two down and discredit them. So you talk, standard kung fu fare here. Fei-hung and his friend, played by Robert Mack, are always competing to see who's like the best expert. There's a spar match at one point when the film begins, just soon after the film begins, realising they get hurt and they're both getting bruised and they're sort of equals. They know kung fu, but they're not exactly experts or anything like that. So what they do is they start paying other people to fight for them. When they pay this guy from the north who refuses like take a dive, who's Johnny Wayne's character, who he's in affiliation with the evil school, though he has no idea they are doing anything wrong, and he's sort of being misled. And at one point, Fei Hung's friend gets beaten and set up at a brothel, so Fei Hung basically has to get justice. I mean, the plot in this, it's the whole plot itself is very sort of, like I said, very low key, I would say. It's very sort of subtle. So basically, it's just between Fei Hung and his friend, and they're competing. And as I say, Johnny Wayne's character sort of gets involved, even though he doesn't fully understand the big picture of what's going on. And the standout sequence, I mean, this is one of them films where it's worth watching just for one scene alone. There's two scenes in this that are, regardless of the film and what you think about the film, whether, you know, what you would rate this film, there are two scenes in this that make it worth the price of admission alone. The first one being when they all get trapped in the theatre, which is set up by this rival clan who, after offering them an invitation, thinking, okay, that's nice, peace offering, it turns out they're saying, well, where's your ticket? And obviously they haven't got tickets, so they lock them in. And then, like, it's so chaotic. There's like this massive brawl, right? There's this huge, massive brawl. It's so chaotic and done so well by Lau Kar-leung, and I think Sao-ho has a lot to do with the choreography as well in this film. It's like you get the impression not one person was left out of the choreography in the fight sequence. Even the extras, the people in the back, the people running around in the background and the foreground, they were all told like instructions on what to do. Like, it's that well choreographed. And there's the fantastic blink and you miss it bit from Sao-ho that I had to wind it back about 2 or 3 times. He's sort of on top of these, he's sort of at the doors, and he basically runs over people's heads, like, and it, all in one shot. And then he sort of comes. It's so small, but like when I saw that, I was like, oh my! And it's literally seconds long. It's tiny, but it's just this little moment he does where he's sort of running over people's shoulders and heads at one, and he's so gifted. Absolutely love watching Sao-ho and like especially the earlier Lau Kar-leungs like this. I mean the end fight as well. That's the other one. Absolutely amazing fight scene. Again, Lau Kar-leung doing something different, not going for the stereotypical, the standard end kung fu fight that we've seen so many times in kung fu movies. It's like, what can we do differently here? How can we mix things up a little bit? How can we change what, you know, the end fight of a kung fu movie is? You know, usually it's in like an open space on top of a hill. You know, it's usually that's usually the standard for most kung fu movies, but Lau Kar-leung here think, what I'll do, I'll set them in a really confined space. I'll put them in a really tight space, very little background, and keep it really confined. So the whole end fight between Gordon Liu and Johnny Wayne's character, which many people say sounds like a porn name, but Johnny Wayne, he puts him in an alleyway, which it's like such a genius idea. Although visually it's not the most striking of end fights to look at, it's just, it really does show, like, let's do, regardless of whether it works or not, let's do something different, right? And I admire that in any filmmaker, whether it's kung fu movies, horror movies, action movies. I love it when people, whether it works, doesn't work, whether it pays off or not, is neither here nor there. Sometimes taking a gamble, doing something a bit different, which is what Lau Kar-leung done here. There's no other end fight like that is in Martial Club. I'm telling you here and now, there is no other fight that is done like this in regards to you know, kung fu movies, and it's regarded to be a classic, and rightly so. Like I say, usually it's set in an open space, the end duel, and this is a real novel approach. You feel every crashing blow up against the walls, and the alleyway, just as the fight progresses, just gets thinner and thinner and thinner. Again, Lau Kar-leung just trying to do something different and going against the grain of what everybody else was doing. So, but yeah, basically that the premise of the film, it's relatively simple. Basically, I'll say Wong Fei-hung, that is sort of done in the same vein. Jackie Chan was playing him sort of in Drunken Master, just sort of a scallywag, knows kung fu, but is still sort of righteous, and at the same time, it just sort of, you know, he's not exactly the best at this point, and they have a thing where they sort of test him as well with, again, different, does it work, does it not work, when they're sort of testing him with sort of materials and fabrics. It's hard to explain, but if you watch the film, they sort of stretch out this material they're sort of doing like a testing his kung fu and testing his stance, and it's just something different. It's just really well done, and you only get sort of things like that in sort of Liu Kar-leung movies, which is why again his reputation is just absolutely, rightly so, just one of the absolute best when it comes to old school kung fu movies. Although maybe not as instantly, I would say, an instant classic as like many other of his films, it's still like anything by Liu Kar-leung you must see. You have to check it out. And while this film I don't think is, like I say, an instant classic, it's not necessarily a 5-star film for me. I know there's people out there that absolutely adore this film. Just for me personally, it's not necessarily, like I say, as classic as some, but he's got such a huge, amazing body of work. Like I've said many times, even an average film from Liu Kar-leung is a really good film compared to so many other people. It's still amazingly good, and it's a lot of people's favourites, like I say, even just for the light-hearted kung fu movie where the villain's not all that bad, and the fast kinetic fight sequences as usual that we come to expect. An amazing end fight sequence, and like I say, it's worth watching for the theatre fight alone. The theatre rumble is absolutely amazing, it really is. So let me know if you've seen Martial Club, let me know if you've enjoyed it, what you thought of it, and hopefully, like I say, 88 Films will keep on releasing these Shaw Brothers movies and I can keep watching them. But I hope you've enjoyed the review, and I'll see you soon.